For the first time in 27 years, a World Series game will be played in Candlestick Park. The Battle of the Bay continues. Game 3 of the 1989 World Series, the Oakland Athletics against the San Francisco Giants. It's been dominant Oakland pitching, of course, in the first 2 games.
Flash forward to the bottom of the 4th inning. Candy Maldonado with the hesitation, allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take.
I'll tell you what, we're having an
Stand by. Stand by.
Northern California rocked by what is apparently a major earthquake.
Man, the ground was shaking, man!
We're not playing baseball for a while, if at all, tonight.
Can you please leave the stadium in an orderly manner?
We will have the stadium thoroughly inspected. There'll be no game here until we're sure it's perfectly safe.
As first pitch neared for Game 3 of the 1989 World Series at Candlestick Park, the San Francisco Giants and their fans were worried about one thing and one thing only: preventing their intercity rivals, the Oakland Athletics, from taking a commanding 3-0 lead in the Battle of the Bay. However, in the blink of an eye, baseball, the World Series, became irrelevant because the ground was shaking, power was out in the ballpark, and San Francisco was suddenly in the middle of its most devastating earthquake in almost a century. Younger baseball fans may or may not know that the late 1980s were chock full of banger World Series matchups, like the Mets clowning Bill Buckner and the Red Sox in '86, the Twins capturing their first title in Minnesota in '87, and, of course, Kirk Gibson's heroics propelling the Dodgers to a championship in '88. And the 1989 World Series was shaping up to be a memorable one as well. Known as the Bay Bridge Series or the Battle of the Bay, the series pitted the Oakland Athletics against the San Francisco Giants, marking baseball's first intercity World Series matchup since the 1950s and the first ever championship showdown between baseball's 2 Bay Area franchises. Yes, the A's and Giants had met in the World Series before, but all those showdowns happened in the dead ball era when the A's played in Philadelphia and the Giants played in New York. Anyway, the Oakland A's came into the '89 World Series looking for redemption, having been on the losing side of Gibson's heroics in the previous year's World Series. And they were heavy favorites in '89 too, having won an MLB best 99 games during the regular season thanks to a well-rounded roster that included future Hall of Famers Dennis Eckersley, Dave Parker, and eventually Rickey Henderson, whom the A's reacquired in a midseason trade. Not to mention, the A's also had the reigning American League MVP in Jose Canseco, although he missed much of the regular season due to injury, plus a hulking first baseman named Mark McGwire. But the Giants, who had come 1 win short of a National League pennant 2 years prior, were no pushovers. Propelled by a career year from National League MVP Kevin Mitchell and MVP runner-up Will Clark, the Giants had one of baseball's most dangerous lineups. A lineup that helped the Giants to their most wins in almost a quarter century. And both the Giants and A's cruised through the best-of-7 championship round, with each of them knocking off their opponents in 5 games to secure a spot in the World Series. The A's were back in the big dance, and the Giants, at long last, were getting their shot at that first title in the Bay Area. And for the first time in their 20 years of coexisting, the 2 Bay Area franchises were meeting on baseball's biggest stage for all the marbles. Nobody could have figured, however, just how memorable this series would be. Now, the first 2 games of the series, I'll point out, were actually pretty unremarkable. The A's just took care of business. In Game 1 in Oakland, Dave Stewart tossed a complete game shutout while Parker and Walt Weiss homered to lift the Athletics to a 5-0 victory. And Game 2 unfolded pretty similarly, with the A's taking a 5-1 victory thanks to a strong start from Mike Moore and some timely hitting, including 3 knocks from Henderson. But that's when this series got shaken up. Following Oakland's 2 wins at home, the best-of-7 shifted to San Francisco. And the thing about San Francisco is that it resides atop the San Andreas Fault, the boundary between 2 tectonic plates and, consequently, one of the most earthquake-prone spots in North America. And San Francisco has seen some doozies over the years, the most catastrophic coming in 1906, when a massive earthquake destroyed 80% of the city and killed more than 3,000 people. Now, that earthquake happened more than 30 years before the Richter scale was invented, but it's estimated that that 1906 quake registered a 7.9. Now, luckily, for much of the next century, San Francisco was spared any more devastating earthquakes. But the city's run of good fortune came to an abrupt and terrifying end on October 17, 1989, just as Game 3 of the World Series was about to get underway. As fans were settling into their seats at Candlestick Park for an early evening first pitch, the excitement was squashed by a loud roar and the ground beneath them shaking. Newly appointed MLB Commissioner Fay Vincent, who was in attendance that day, said it sounded like a flight of major military bombers had flown over the ballpark. Yeah, It was happening.
Screech was so loud, it felt like a train was coming through the door. I said, earthquake, and auxiliary lights flipped on, and I was gone.
And fans watching at home around the country soon learned that something was wrong.
Fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take.
Inside the ballpark, the light towers and upper deck swayed, the video scoreboard got scrambled, and that 15-second quake felt like an eternity. Fortunately, once the dust settled, nobody inside the building had sustained any major injuries. But the quake had zapped the building of its power, done some damage to the stadium, and certainly unnerved the more than 62,000 fans in attendance and those on the field. And remember, this was before cell phones or smartphones. For those at the game, access to information was quite limited, and only fans or players with transistor radios immediately knew just how devastating this earthquake was. But word eventually spread throughout the ballpark. A section of the Bay Bridge had collapsed, as had the Cypress Freeway in West Oakland. Fires were spreading throughout the city, and this earthquake, which registered 6.9 on the Richter scale, was going to go down as one of the worst in San Francisco's history.
Prepare yourselves. Prepare for aftershocks. Prepare for 3 days of no services. You got 90 minutes of light left. You better make use of your time.
Suddenly, Game 3 of the World Series became unimportant. It was increasingly clear, amid the chaos, that this game was not going to be played. And the postponement was soon announced by the commissioner and the local police commander. Following the postponement, the A's and Giants players scrambled to get their families out of the stands and onto the field so that they could evacuate together. And they, along with the tens of thousands of fans, exited Candlestick Park into a ravaged city. In the end, the Loma Prieta earthquake claimed 63 lives, injured thousands more, and caused more than $6 billion in property damage. It was, at the time, one of the costliest natural disasters in American history. But get this, it's believed that the earthquake taking place during Game 3 actually helped prevent a greater loss of life. Because so many Bay Area natives had headed home early to catch the game, there wasn't the usual volume of traffic on the Bay Bridge or the Cypress Street Viaduct when sections of each collapsed right during rush hour. Still, it was a terrible tragedy that devastated the Bay Area, and baseball took a back seat to the crisis response. In the wake of the earthquake, Vincent initially postponed the World Series at least a week, although that postponement eventually stretched to 10 days, making it the longest delay in World Series history. In the meantime, I should point out, the A's flew to Arizona to get some workouts in, while the Giants hung around the Bay Area. And on October 27th, after a harrowing week and a half, the World Series got back on track with Game 3 at Candlestick Park, which had undergone repairs following the earthquake and had been deemed safe once again. In a touching gesture, emergency responders who had provided assistance following the earthquake threw out the ceremonial first pitch. As it turned out though, the remainder of the series was actually pretty anticlimactic. The A's pummeled the Giants in Game 3, smashing 5 homers en route to a 13-7 victory and a 3-0 series lead. And the following night, the A's completed their 4-game sweep, walloping their way to a 9-6 win and their first championship in 15 years. However, Oakland's victory in the Battle of the Bay wasn't nearly as gratifying as they would have hoped given the circumstances. The A's didn't even pop any champagne bottles after Game 4 out of respect for the victims of the earthquake, and Canseco later described his team celebration as a somber one.
That took a lot away from the celebration aspect and what the Oakland A's had actually accomplished for that period of time. So, I mean, we never had the parades, we never did any of that. It was kind of like a somber celebration behind it.
Ultimately, the A's commanding victory ended up being a footnote of the '89 World Series. And more than 35 years later, the only World Series matchup ever between Oakland and San Francisco is remembered not for the gripping baseball that unfolded between two inner-city rivals, but rather for the tragic way that that showdown was interrupted by Mother Nature. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.